All right. Well, I see more people getting on, so I'm going to give you a quick intro. Not like you need it because everyone on our team anyways knows who you are. But for those who maybe don't, or any guests we have, today we're doing systems with Serri / systems with Gary, and he's going to be reviewing Zipforms and car forms. We get contract questions throughout our team. Very often, our TCs especially. So we wanted to kind of have one place where we can go through Zipforms, go through our templates, note important things that you need to know on your offers, etc. And also just be like a tool and a resource. Gary's very knowledgeable. He's been doing this for a very long time. So if you have questions about contracts or where should I put that in, or, oh, here's this cool trick that Gary does that he's going to share with you. This is really a place for that. So thank you all for being here. And Gary, I'm going to pass it over to you.
That's the torch or the baton. Okay.
I couldn't decide what to say, so I just said,
that's all right.
To you.
I'll fumble my way through here. Well, Rachel's on, so feel free to jump in at any time and correct me or whatever, or add in. All right. So one thing that I want to make sure to hit home with everybody is log in to zipformsplus.com. Don't go through the MLS like you used to if you were with a previous broker. You need to log in as your company email and then the password. That way you'll get the global templates that we have, the buyer, the listing templates and all of that. Last week I was speaking with somebody and I noticed like an offer and it didn't look like, I could tell it wasn't our template. And as we were talking, it was like the person wasn't, they were going through the regular MLS. Your life's going to be much easier when we have the template to rely on. I just saw in Slack this morning about plotted easements, and they're talking about taking that out. And if that gets taken out of the template, that'll be just taken out for everybody. So the next time you write an offer, it won't be there anymore. That's a benefit of having these global templates. You can make them your own, add in your own. Obviously, on page 16, you need to add in your name and your email and your not your name will already be there, but the email and phone number and that kind of stuff. So, you know, it's to your benefit to use our global templates for sure. And you can change them. Obviously, you can tailor them to the way you want them to be. I know a lot of our contingencies are defaulted like 10 days rather than the regular 17, but you can always tweak those, as I'm sure most of you guys know already. So, again, so this is where you're going to go. Don't go through your regular MLS and then, oh, I'm going to click on the Zipforms login and log in. You're not going to see our global templates. If you don't see our global templates, then that's a little bit of an issue. I'll show you guys real quick. I know most of you guys probably know how to access them, but I'll just show you here. Any day now. And today's session is going to be really more about car forms than it is actual Zipforms, but I'm going to point you in the direction of where you can go to get help in Zipforms. I pretty much use it as a basic level. I don't use all the features that it has, just like, you know, CRMs like Follow Up Boss. I think we use it to a pretty good extent, but like there's other CRMs that people don't use like half the stuff that's available to you. Kind of like Zipforms. There's stuff that's in there that you might use, you might not, you know, it's really up to you and your personal preference. Let's this out. This is taking so long. So what I wanted to show you, just real basic for you guys, is just you click on new, say you're doing a purchase, and should be right down here. So after you fill out everything, you do the MLS Connect and all of that, you should have your templates right here. Might not let me do it without filling it out. Oh, there it is. So if you don't see these, you didn't log in correctly. you didn't log in with your company email. If you still don't have it for some reason, I would contact myself. Ashley will try to figure out what's going on. But 9 times out of 10, when somebody says I don't have the templates, it's because they didn't log in correctly. So just make sure you're logging in through zipformsplus.com, not through the MLS. And once you get to create a new one, you should see it right there. Another thing I wanted to show you guys, which I have not used a lot myself, but it's kind of cool, is under here, transaction tools. You've got a few of these, which not even sure what a couple of these are. I looked at them a little bit and I'm like, I don't know. I just haven't used them. But there's Forms Advisor and there's Forms Tutor. Is there anybody here that's used either one of them? I'll take that as a no. All right, so just real quick, I'll show you Forms Advisor. So with this one, kind of cool. If you've been doing it a while, you already kind of know what forms are going to be needed. This is really going slow. Hopefully I can do it here. No, so it's okay. I'm going to show you. I'll show you I took a screenshot of it. Let me see though if I can show you this one, Forms Tutor. So you've got Forms Tutor right here. It's on your car.org site. If you click on that, it's not all of our forms. There's, I think, 72 altogether forms that show up here. Keep in mind, if you are going to this, that there's going to be a few that I can see the forms are a little outdated, but they might still apply. So like, let's see. I'll do the COP since we're going to go over that one a little bit later. So if you click on any one of these forms, you're going to see these blue dots and you can click on them. It'll tell you a little bit about what it's about, or it'll tell you like specifically each line and what it may be. So this is one way. If you have a form that you've never filled out before and you're like, I'm not sure what this means. What does it mean? There's several different places you can go, but this is one of them. Forms Tutor. Pull up the form and click on these little blue dots and they'll give you that information. So, which is, I don't know, I think that's kind of nice feature to have. So let me go back to here. So just kind of talked about these already, so it just showed you that. And then, so where you can go to find help. So again, obviously you can, if you have a mentor, you can ask your mentor. We've got Slack and all that kind of stuff, but you guys also need to be as self-sufficient as possible, because you may have in a time crunch and you can't get a hold of a particular person, or people are busy, you know, so it's a Saturday and you're trying to get an offer sent out at Saturday night and you just can't get a hold of anybody or whatever. You got to be able to like look up your own information and stuff. It's old school, like we all used to do, you know, and you still, there's lots of resources out there. So as far as Zipforms itself, you can click here on this, well, can't click on this. You can go to car.org, and in here, there's a section where it has tons of training, tons of zip tips. I went in this morning, looked at a few of them. They're all like less than, they're like 1 minute to 2 minutes long. And it's just quick little info that might be something that you're looking for. If you guys are in between, like I know everybody's busy, but if you're not busy, like always continually self-educate yourself. So you can go in here, there's a YouTube channel, there's webinar schedules, there's a webinar library. I went and looked at a few of these last week. Some of them are older, so you just got to keep all of that in mind. Just like when you Google something or you're on Slack and you're searching for an answer for something, always look at the date and see how old it is. Because there was some of these that were like from 2017. Well, chances are that form or whatever is going to be old. It may or may not apply still though. Some of our forms don't get updated like every year or every 2 years or whatever. Some of them, they just have, there hasn't been a change, so it's still going to be applicable. So, but you can see it's not just Zipforms, but there's also Authentisign, information about that. Tons of guides, all kinds of, I guess, a Zipform community where you could ask questions. They have a helpline as well. So if you're, you know, struggling with something in Zipforms, just call them up and get the answer. They're going to know more than any one of us that maybe uses this all the time, because that's what they do all day. So, and then, so this is a little bit, if you guys could kind of see this is what I couldn't get it to come up. I was asking for a password and I have no idea what that is because I don't use Forms Advisor, but I played around with it before. So when you bring it up, it'll start asking you a series of questions. These default to yes, like, you know, if you're a member of the MLS and so forth, but it'll ask a series of questions. This isn't everything. And it might ask like, does the buyer have a property to sell? And if you marked yes, it defaults to no, but if you mark yes, then it's going to automatically attach the COP form for you. It'll do all this stuff to guide you to know which forms you can use. Again, I haven't used it. I can't say yay or nay and pros and cons of it necessarily, but it's just something there, especially if you're new, you might want to like try it on one of your deals and see how it works out. I already showed you the tutor. So as far as car forms themselves, you've got the forms tutor, you've got a Slack channel. I'm trying to get this going. It's called Car Forms. And so far, I think I'm the only one that's really been utilizing it and inputting stuff. But any of you guys, whether you're new or experienced, if you fill out a form that's maybe you feel like would be useful for everybody else, share it, put it out on there. That way we could all kind of pin it to the top or whatever you need to do. Or you could send it to me and I'll look at it and go, yeah, thanks. And then I'll pop it in, however you guys want to do that. It's just going to be, it's a tool for you guys. So when you go to fill out a form, and you're not sure how to fill it out, you've got a place to go to and say, like, look, let me see if it's not going to be all inclusive. Probably won't have much on leasing and rentals and that kind of stuff. But maybe if somebody's doing something, I don't know, we don't really do property management. We don't, but I don't know if there's just a form that you can think of that like isn't in there that would be useful. Put it in there. So there's already, check it out though. There's already pinned at the top a lot of a link to our drive, our Google Drive, that has already a bunch of forms that I put in, as well as Susie, that are already filled out forms, so you can get a good idea. You know, I know in the past I've done training on repairs, requests for repairs, and how to kind of fill that out. That's in there. So you just see examples like that, SPQs, TDSs, a little bit what Steve went over. Those kind of forms are all in there, so you can know what they're supposed to look like. And then the car legal hotline. So on that one, I've used it. I used it to do an ABA form. So I had an agent just a few weeks ago that was, their previous broker was going to be in on a deal with her. So it was two separate brokers. So there's a form you have to fill out. It's an ABA, not an AAA, but ABA. And on that form, there were some questions I had. I wasn't quite sure. I thought I kind of knew how to fill it out, but it wasn't super clear. And so I ended up calling legal hotline and kind of, I've only ever used them for when I'm in a transaction and I've had an issue, and it's kind of rare, but it's happened. When I talked to the lady, super nice, super helpful. She helped me fill it out. And then I said, well, where can I go? So I don't have to call you guys. Where can I go to get this kind of information? She says, no, call us. That's what you guys pay us for. So feel free to call us on this kind of stuff. But with that being said, I would do your research first, try to find the answers, and then see where we can go from there. Now, this is a test. This last one, this is GTS. What does that stand for?
Go to Slack.
No, I'll give you a big hint. Ashley, I think.
Google that shit.
You got it. Who said that? Nathan. Yep. Google that shit. Honestly, not Melissa, Annabelle, I think, asked me a question the other day, and I was like, I don't know. You know, I Googled it and there was the answer. It was like, there was, you know, I mean, it's just Google it sometimes, you know, I'm not afraid to admit that I get it. You have to do that. And there's a lot of videos and stuff on there. So I'm going to go over a couple forms. One of them is the COP form. And I Googled it and wanted to watch like how somebody else explains it. And there was like a 5-minute video of, or maybe it was 10 minutes, of a guy, a broker, who was explaining it really well. And I was like, that's awesome. So you can get that kind of information. They're usually in small chunks like that, maybe no more longer than 10 or 15 minutes long on a particular form. So you can get a good, clear understanding on how to utilize and use that form. It's important. Do not rely on the TCs for this kind of stuff. You guys need to be able to fill these forms out. I don't know, and Rachel could speak for it, but I don't know how much they're doing as far as filling out forms, but like a lot of the forms, it's your job to fill them out and fill them out correctly, you know, so they can check them and make sure like the signatures are there and that kind of stuff, but you know, there's certain forms you need to be able to fill them out. And I've honestly, over the past, there's times where I just got corrected by other agents. It's embarrassing, but it's like, I don't know, I've never filled it out before. They would say, hey, put it this way. Luckily, they were nice like that, you know, and stuff, and weren't jerks about it. But it's kind of how I ended up learning too. Like I learned from other coworkers and things like that, but also other agents as we were in deals, and I would see how maybe they filled out a form, and I'd be like, oh, that's an awesome idea. And so I'm going to start filling mine out that way. You know, I like the way they did it. It was nice and clean. It was, the verbiage was great, or whatever it might be. So this is just to kind of show you the same thing where you can get the number for car legal. Again, it's kind of your last resort. I feel like, you know, I wouldn't totally want to rely on them. Plus you're on hold for a while and stuff. Another thing that I know I kind of preach in onboarding, and thanks to Susie, she had sent this to me, is this is the RPA guide. So with this, it's you know, you got your regular RP. I wish there was one of these for every form, so it really explained it, and maybe there is and I just don't know about it, but or you have to buy them or something like that. But that with this, it's like what I always say is like the RPA will have, you know, your grid format in the first 4 pages, and let's say it's whatever 8L or something. You want to look at what that actually means, and I just threw that out there. I don't even know what AL is, but might be the COP. Anyway, so you can go down to the page where it has 8L, and it'll explain what it is, you know, and they're like, okay, great. Where if you want to dig a little bit deeper, like it might be just one paragraph, and it's like, I don't know if I still get it. Go into here, and then it might have like 4 or 5 paragraphs and explain real detail of what it, you know, what it means. So here's an example. Check on time. Okay, so like this one here is about the initial deposit. So this was something I'll admit I just learned when in this last year when I saw this. I didn't know that the deposit wasn't a mandatory item. So even though it's right here, it says, although a buyer does not need to make an initial deposit with the offer to create a binding contract, most sellers expect a buyer to do so as evidence of the buyer's intent. You know, they want to see some skin in the game. I don't know if is there anybody here, maybe you can off mute. Have you ever written an offer or received an offer with no deposit?
I have. I wrote an offer with a client once that didn't want to put anything in, and told them that wasn't going to happen, and it didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it would be rare. Here's one thing, and the reason I'm kind of talking about this too is because during onboarding, when I have people do sample RPAs and we do the VA, super common for people to put 0 as the deposit, because they, in their mind, I know what they're thinking. They're thinking like, oh, it's you know, it's a 0 down, so I don't have to put a deposit. That's not necessarily true on a VA. Now, you know, normally, you know, the EMD or earnest money deposit is what we say 1 to 3%. It could be anything, but it's typically 1 to 3%. But maybe you could get away with less, maybe $1,000 or something like that, because it's their VA, and it might be dependent on the seller. Maybe the seller's a veteran, and they're like, yeah, you know, we'll do 500 or whatever, just so there's like something in there. It's just like if you're buying a used car from somebody, you want them to hold it, you're going to give them a little bit of money, you know, to put that deposit. I'm sure it's happened. I bet it has happened where there's been 0 and they've accepted it. Not in this kind of market, I wouldn't think, you know, but, or it's maybe a seller that's selling to their neighbor and there's still agents involved, and they're like, yeah, you know, no, you don't have to do deposit, whatever, fine. But it would be rare to do that. So that was one of them. And then the other one I like to just always kind of hit home, and this is the condition of the property. So within on 7B in there, it shows that it's as is condition, which means it's at the it's the same as it was when you made, you know, you put in the offer. And so I kind of like to use this too when I'm kind of prepping my buyers for the home inspection. I don't know if it's HGTV, those shows or whatever it is, but a lot of them have that mindset that, well, we're going to ask for all kinds of stuff and we're going to ask for this and that. Even safety stuff, my understanding is like, oh yeah, well, let's just ask for the safety stuff. That's common, like realtor lingo and stuff, but it still doesn't mean the seller has to fix it. Now I'm talking like conventional. Now there's FHA and VA, certain things that have to get done for it to be complete, but also the seller could still say no and just the buyer walks and then they put it back on the market. It's rare that something like that would happen, but I mean, when I'm always prepping, I'm going to say, the property is sold as is, so when you do the purchase, but when we do a home inspection, they're probably going to find 30, 40 things. That's common. What we want to do is find the items that you really want to get fixed and say there's 15 of them. They may come back and say, we'll do 7 of them. They'll do all 15 or they'll do nothing. And I don't think it's on here. It's not here, but somewhere in here, it states too, as you guys probably already know, I've never had it happen, but the agent, like the listing agent and the sellers can just completely ignore your request for repairs. They can never respond to you. You can put it in there and you have to take that as a no. It says that in this somewhere in here about that in detail. It seems odd. I've never had that happen. Common courtesy, you just kind of say we decline or we're not going to do it or whatever, but they can just ignore it. Like you never even send it over. They don't have to respond, which seems odd to me. It seems really weird. I don't know if any of you guys have ever had that happen, where they just didn't respond at all to your request for repairs. Even like they don't even have to say they received it or anything. They can just ignore it, which is just weird. Another thing I want to make sure, and again, I wrote in a reminder actually, I thought I put it in there to log in with your company email, but also just thoroughly check all initials, signatures, dates, anything where you're supposed to check box stuff before you submit the offer. So make sure everything is done as perfect as possible. What's happening too is when it gets to the TCs, if you missed something, then it's something that they have to take care of. And as you guys know, we've got they're both handling roughly 20, right around 20 to 25 deals a month. That's a lot. And if they have to go back and do one little thing, it's taking time out. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but if they're working on so many other ones, and you've got deals that are maybe they're going to close early, or they need an extension, or there's whatever else they got to work on. When it's just something little that just maybe sloppy, and I've been sloppy before too. I've missed stuff, it happens, but just try to be as thorough as possible. So one of the things I wanted to mention here is where I've highlighted here, making sure you put your email and your phone number here and check mark this box right here. Make sure that that's checked when you put these in. And then up here, presentation of offer. The buyer's agent makes a written request. Seller's agent shall perform in writing that this offer has been presented. So when I was talking to one of the TCs on Friday, this should always be signed, initialed, and dated. So what I would do is, when you present your offer somewhere in your email, unless somebody has a better suggestion, put in there in the email, please, on page 16, please initial and date presentation of offer or something like that, so that that that's been done. Even if it's a multiple offer situation, just try to put that in there. Or, if you get it accepted, send it before you open up and you fill out that pending form, try to get that done. Does anybody do anything different there? I wouldn't do a verbal. It's because it says to do it in writing. Or is anybody doing this?
I asked for this one time. I knew the offer wasn't going to be accepted, but we wrote so many offers that weren't accepted that I wanted to give them something in writing that it was rejected. So if we request this, do they have to return it to us signed if it's rejected?
Well, there isn't there? Did they change it? I thought somewhere on this form there was an actual part where they show that it was rejected.
Gary, I hate to tell you this, but you don't have the current page 16 of the RPA. But yeah, because there is one now underneath presentation. There's a box that says rejection, and they fill that out as well. And I know because up on the designated delivery addresses, now the new one has 2 check marks, one for email and one for phone.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
the
rejection is on the new version.
It is, okay. So, yeah, my bad. I didn't know. Yeah, no, thanks for letting me know that. I probably had this already somewhere, and then I just like, I know I did because Angie agent, I haven't used that one in a while, so I just picked it up. I didn't realize it was an older one. So, okay, it's good to know. So do you, Steve, do you ever write like to have them initial this and date it?
Absolutely, and from what I understand, it's now a requirement for Real Broker that we turn these in, especially if you do the escrow.
Right, right. So do you do it like from the get-go when you know there's multiple offers, or do you like get your offer accepted and then you go back and say, please initial and date it?
Every offer I submit, I ask them to please send back page 16 whether they accept our offer or not.
Okay. So there you go. So that, yeah, I would do the same thing, you guys, just so that you get that done. Otherwise, it's, you know, it shouldn't be put on the TCs to do this. This is stuff that you should have in place prior to like filling out that form. Okay, so couple of forms I kind of asked around last week, and hey, what forms do you guys want me to go over, and how are we doing on time? You know, and so forth. So I wanted to like just to see. I didn't get a lot of answers, but I did get one on the COP form, and when the property is in a trust or the buyers have a trust or something like that. So I'll go over those two forms. So on this one, you know, if they're selling one property to buy another, so your buyer has a property to sell, it's going to be contingent. Make sure on L8 here is that you're check marking this box so that COP will be attached. When you get to this form, this one, it was actually Serri who had mentioned like to go over this one. And this is the one where I was mentioning where I watched a video on it and it was like, okay, it was good. It was good to kind of help explain some of this stuff. What this guy said was this was the most complicated or most common form that people don't fill out correctly. So I'll do my best to try to explain it a little bit. So the top is pretty basic of what you know, how you're going to fill it out and everything. Right here on the buyer's property contingency. Number A, this one gives the most protection for the buyer. But again, you got to remember you're trying to get your offer accepted. So you have it where the buyer is entering into a contract for the sale of and closing escrow of buyer's property. B is only entering into contract, which is so this one it's not contingent on the sale on the close of the buyer's property. So this one is, if you mark B, it's only that it got entered in, but it's not if that buyer on the buyer's property cancels, you still have to go through with it. It's not contingent. So I don't know why someone would really want to do that one. I probably wouldn't. And then C is if you're already in escrow, the buyer already has it, you know, their property in Texas or wherever already is in escrow, then you try to get this information, the escrow number, and not try, but you get it, and then the escrow number. And number two, if the buyer's entering into contract, just want to make sure that you kind of hit home is like, you always want to make sure to keep the listing agent abreast of everything that's going on that property. Like, okay, yeah, it's listed, it's in the MLS, like show them all the proof and everything. And if, yeah, we got an offer, we're working on it. Just let them in the know, because you would want to know. You'd want to know exactly what's going on. When you're silent, like to them, they don't know what's going on. And then it just creates unneeded stress. On this one, and somebody else could probably help me out, I haven't done a lot of these, but buyer shall have either 17 days or whatever you want to put after acceptance to enter into a contract for the sale of the buyer's property. So it depends. Then, you know, in this market in Southern California, that might be pretty reasonable, but what if it is somewhere else, North Carolina or somewhere where don't even know what their market's like? Is it taking on average 45 days for them to get into escrow, and it just got listed or something like that? There's some kind of some things that you need to know, and you need to know and talk to that listing agent of that buyer's property if you're not the actual listing agent on it. Let's see. On number 3, okay, so yeah, so on 3A, it's just if it's you want to put the broker's name here, if the company name, if it's already listed. And then let's see, buyer shall deliver to seller evidence of both the listing agreement and, if applicable, the MLS listing 1 day after acceptance. So you're just basically, again, you're showing proof that, like, look, it's listed, it's ready to go. On number 4, okay, yeah, so this one on number 4, the default buyer has until the following time to close escrow on the sale of the buyer's property. And then under I right here, it says the scheduled close of escrow of the seller's property. Or, and then you could put in some days here. So if you're wanting it to close concurrently, which in the past, that's how all of mine have been. You guys may have had something different where maybe the buyer's property closes a little earlier, and then the property they're buying, you know, it 5 days later or whatever, it closes. But I've always had them go concurrently, and usually the escrow officers, they communicate with each other and they kind of handle all of that. So it's my experience. I don't know if you guys have had different experiences where there's been hiccups and stuff. I'm sure there is, you know, things fall out of escrow and stuff. That's why the sellers, it's not that like, what's the word? It's not that like advantageous to accept an offer when it's concurrent, you know, or it's contingent on a sale of another property, because anything can happen. So, let's see. A lot of this stuff, I'm not obviously going to read through everything, but let me jump down to 7. Oh, as far as backup offers. So the seller, backup offers after acceptance, the seller may have the right to continue to offer the seller's property for sale as backup offers. On this, if you don't choose one of these down here, they can get a backup offer and then they can send you a notice to perform and they can cancel on you. I wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want that. Your buyer wouldn't want that. So I would do 7C, number 3, which is they have no right to notify the buyers. Sellers shall not have the right to invoke provisions in paragraph 7B, which is basically canceled. Now, you could also have number C2, which I'm going to guess maybe a little more common if you want to get your offer accepted. And Steve or anybody can correct me if I'm wrong on that. That might be one that you might use more often. And it's, but they can't notify the buyer like to perform or anything like that until at least the default of 17 days or whatever you enter in there. I see Steve nodding his head, so I'm going to take that as a yes. Again, I've done a few of these. It's been a while, but and then the last one here is on 11A. So this one is where it says a good box, or I wrote good box to check if you want both escrow contingency timeframes to run concurrently. Otherwise, the default is what is in the RPA. So you write an RPA, you have a 30-day escrow. This buyer's property is not in escrow yet. Your timelines and contingencies are in effect to that RPA. So you need to start getting the appraisal done and the inspections and all of that stuff done right away. Or you could check mark that box and then you can have them start when the other one starts concurrently, like it starts escrow, then they both start at the same time. If I'm explaining that right, if that makes sense to you guys. This last part right here on page 2 is the seller may then, if they sign this, the seller signs this, then they have a right to do a notice to perform and have the buyer provide proof of funds. Or wait, excuse me. This notice to remove buyer contingencies and proof of funds is not delivered until the time of specified in 7C. So that's why, like in 7C, you want to make sure you're putting something in here that's going to protect your buyer as much as possible. Any questions on this one? I know it's a lot. All right. So the last two forms I have is the trust advisory and the RCSD. So they both go together. So if you have like I just had a listing, my sister-in-law, and it was that we just closed on, and she had it in a family trust. So we had to do both of these forms. So on this one with the trust advisory, you're just basically, you're letting them know that it's in a trust. You're letting the other party know, and that the seller still has a right or still has an obligation to, fill out all and provide all the different disclosures and forms. There are can be some exceptions in like the TDS. Let me see. Let me read this part. Seller, unless specified in 2AII, does not have to complete, sign, or provide the buyer with a real estate with a TDS or natural hazard form. Seller remains obligated to make the disclosures and comply with the items specified. So in 2AII is, oh yeah, right. Sorry, I was looking on the other page right here. So seller must complete, sign, and provide the TDS if the seller is a natural person, and number 2, the trust is a revocable trust, and the trustee is either a former owner of the property or was an occupant in the possession of this property. So if they're not anything, like if they weren't living there at all, say it was like a daughter of their mom passed away and the daughter lived in wherever, New Mexico, never lived in the house, never anything like that, then they don't necessarily have to fill that out if the person passed away, because they're not going to know. Is that right?
Yeah, there's actually a form that they have to complete stating that they did not live in the property and they would not be providing a TDS or SPQ.
Yep. I don't remember where that form is. I've seen it before, but yeah, absolutely. So that's this one. There's not a lot to fill out on this, but then you're also just make sure when you're putting in for the seller, you're putting in, whatever that trust name is. And then on this one is the RCSD. So this is for the seller. The other one will say -B right here. So this is and it'll say buyer up there. So the top part, you just fill it out as normal, and I would mark this disclosure of this form supersedes any legally authorized seller representation or representative capacity signature disclosure. So you're going to put in the Bob the buyer, Samantha the seller's living trust. You're going to mark that it's a trust, and you're going to put in the name of the trust here. If it's something different, then you're going to mark it as appropriately, like if it's power of attorney or something like that. And then down here, you can put like just the person's name, and you put their title, like trustee, whatever that might be. I don't know. I'm sure there's some other options right there on that one. Let's see. That is all I have. One other thing I wanted to touch on is within, let me see if I'm still logged in before I start. Yeah. So such lag time here. It's not dragging up for some reason. I don't know why it's taking so long. There we go. So all I wanted to show you guys, and I think most of you guys should know, when you're going to do signatures, I always use Authentisign. I think that's what most of you guys are using. Just create that. That's fine. That. And some of you guys might already know where I'm going with this, but basically, you know how like the signature blocks normally will automatically be put in here. Let me just add. And again, this is probably for the newer people, but like you can see that these are already in here. If you have to add a signature line, click on tools, make sure you choose the right person, click sign here, and then you're going to drag it down. Let's say it was this next line. Make sure that you're dragging the date down like that, and that's it. I'm going to sound old school, but like we used to have to do this on all the forms. Even a long time ago, we printed them out and then we had to hand write them in. Like that was like early 2000s. But now it's like we used to have to drag them in. It was a pain, but you just did it. But with here, like it's like we're spoiled now. Like they're automatically in there. But again, the form that comes to mind is the TOA, which when you're putting in that dark archival fee part on our template, it's going to automatically create that TOA. It does not put the signature block in there. So when you guys are doing these signatures, before you click next, scroll down every single page. It won't take long. You'll get used to it, and just look and see, are all the initials there? Is everything there? I actually scroll all the way down and then I scroll all the way back up. And so that's a double check right there before I click next, before I send it out, because I don't want to miss something. And then I have to go back to my buyer and have them sign it. And then I find out I missed something again. And now it's the third time. They're going to be like, what are you don't know what you're doing? What's going on? So I just try to really be careful that I've got everything in place that I need to before I click it to sit, next on that. Does anybody have questions or anything? This is really all I've got. Or Rachel, if you're still here, do you have anything you want to add as far as TC wise that would help you guys out and help everybody all together?
No, I think you did a wonderful job, Gary.
Well, thank you, Miss Unicorn. All right, you guys. Well, that's all I've got. If anybody has
I have a quick question. It's Tulane.
Oh, Tulane. Okay, go ahead.
When I'm entering to write an offer, I used to be able to put in the MLS ID and it would populate a ton of the information for me. But most of the time that doesn't work. It always says cannot find the property. Is that because I'm not subscribed to something that I should be?
Well, what MLS do you belong to?
SDAR.
Do you put SD at the end of it?
When I go online?
So when you actually, let me see.
I was having that issue too, Tulane. And
Yeah,
because
if
it
you
does
don't
pop up.
if you don't capitalize the letters in the MLS number, it's not going to find it.
And so I noticed too, like if I'm finding like the MLS number, sometimes it will just show just a number. This happened with, I think, Annabelle or somebody who I was mentoring. They're like, oh, give me the MLS number. And they wanted me to look something up. Yeah, it was Annabelle. I remember it now. And she gave me the number and I couldn't find it. I was searching and searching. And then I go, let me put SD at the end of it. And it popped up. So it's because we have different MLSs. I think ours is NDP. It starts with NDP. And then the number, and then where yours, if like say you do a listing, I'm making an assumption that when it gives you the MLS number, it's going to have SD at the end of it. If somebody from another MLS doesn't put those letters in and capitalize them, they don't show up. If you have one in mind, I can run a test real quick and see if it works.
So what I'm saying is when I'm in Zipforms and I do the MLS Connect.
Right.
When I'm putting
It's
in the
probably because we're
transaction.
SDAR, Tulane, because I have the same issue.
Right.
It's you have to capitalize the letters. I sat for like 30 minutes one day trying to figure out why my MLS Connect was not working. I capitalized the letters and boom, it worked perfectly.
What if there are no letters at the beginning?
There are no letters. Yeah.
Just a
some of them
number.
don't have letters.
Oh.
If it's just
What
the
if there are no
number,
letters in the beginning? There's just a number. a series of numbers. Because here's what I noticed when I was on my other brokerage. At the very beginning of the MLS Connect, at the top, there's a scroll down button saying CRMLS, and that's the
Mhm. Yep.
only option.
Option.
And the other one, the other brokerage I was with, there was several options. In other words, there was a ton of different MLSs that it could recognize. So I thought, well, maybe I'm not subscribed to the right MLS. I need to subscribe to more MLSs. Or is it our system, Zipforms, is only recognizing the CRMLS listed?
I think that's what it is.
This is where you're talking about though, right
Yes,
here, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
click on
So if you
that.
click there,
And, it
and then
only
you
gives
see the
CRMLS.
CRMLS one, that's the
Yeah.
only MLS that our Zipforms is connected to. So unless, if it's listed on the CRMLS, then it will come up, no matter how I write it in the ID. But if it's not listed through that portal, by that agent, then it won't.
So as far as I know, Riverside County, San Diego County, and Orange County are all CRMLS. I
Hmm,
think Imperial
Mm-mm.
County as well.
No,
Um,
we're SDAR is different. It's SDMLS.
correct.
no, it's still CRMLS though.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure SDAR
Oh.
is still part of
because with my old
CRMLS.
brokerage, I used to have to click on the SDAR and then the number would come up.
A year and a half
Mm-hmm.
ago, they changed everything, so the SDAR, NSDCAR, and then Riverside, and as Gary put out the other ones, they combined them all under the CRMLS.
Okay.
It does make it tricky though, because so this is just what I found is if I put just the number here, yeah, it doesn't find it. But if it's like, then I'll add SD at the end because I go, oh, maybe it's one
Okay.
SDAR. It will then pop up. I believe ours starts the North County one starts with NDP, I think, or it ends in NDP.
You know, it starts with NDP, and Lauren just popped the MLS number in the chat if you want to try to bring that one up. She said it happened to her on that one.
So guys, just so you know, I still have, if you log in through the MLS through SDAR, when you go to the same MLS Connect, what pops up as the default for that is SDSPN. So it's a whole different MLS name if you're going through SDAR.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
It could not load now. Put the SD in and see if it works. It worked.
So
So adding,
you're
so
right.
adding SD at the end.
Just put
So-
SD at the end in caps. I love it. Thank
Thanks
you.
for bringing this
Saved
up,
us a ton
Tulane,
of
because it
time.
was driving me
Drives me
bonkers.
nuts.
So thanks for bringing that up.
Now keep in mind, there's also, it could be, where it's NDP or something. So
That
I don't
always
know what
works.
all of them are.
It's
That
the
works.
ones that don't have letters don't work, but that
I
we
think
solved
NDP
it.
is CRMLS, that's why. And then the
Yeah.
other, if it doesn't have that and it's just numbers, that's a SD or the
Okay,
whatever the
wonderful.
other one is.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys. That works.
yeah,
Thank you.
cool. All right, anybody else have any other questions?
No, thank you so much, Gary.
Yep, you got it. I always do this, by the way. I'm sure you guys do too. I always like to see the picture when I do it. I just didn't do it for example, but. All right, you guys. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for the
much.
questions and all the input.
Thanks, Gary.
Yep. I appreciate it. We'll see you later.
Thank you, Gary.